the bookies think that Robert has a better chance of being leader of Reform than he did as leader of the Conservative Party. So on that basis, he's probably had a good week.
Well, at the moment, he says he is merely 270,000th or so member of Reform.
A mere foot soldier.
A mere foot soldier.
I sense trouble ahead.
Today, I am joined by former Conservative Cabinet Minister Dame Penny Mordaunt. Hello to you, Penny.
Hello.
Hello. And the Labour peer and barrister, Helena Kennedy. Baroness Helena Kennedy, no less. Welcome to you, Helena.
Lovely to be with you and to see you again, Caroline.
Oh, well, it's great to get you both on. And I mean, what a week. But look, Penny, I'd like to just start with you, if I may, because there's something that you've been dealing with for some time. Earlier today, a man who's been stalking you for a number of years has been sentenced to 20 weeks in jail at Southampton Crown Court. Can you just give us a sense of what you've been going through and your reflections after all of this?
Well, look, I hope this man now will reflect on his actions and his ways. Nothing to date has caused him to do that, not police interventions, not being arrested. He even broke his stalking protection order after the trial and the verdict had been delivered. But the fact he is now behind bars, and also I have to say, Caroline, that Elon Musk has also taken some action banning non-consensual deepfake images on X, means that my life is going to improve considerably, at least for the next 20 weeks. And I think the moral of the story for me in this week particularly is when you stand up for yourself, you stand up for others as well. And I hadn't really realised how true that would be until this trial took place, because other women have now come forward about this man. But as I said at the time, I could tell the public 1,000 happier stories about my time in public life, and you should never let the actions of people like this deter you from doing what you want to do and what you feel is right to serve your community.
Well, that's amazingly positive of you, but what kind of toll has all of this taken on you personally?
Well, look, I think most MPs go through this kind of stuff. I mean, I've had about 700 serious threats in my career. This is only the second one I've had to go to court with. But most your local MP listeners is probably dealing with some kind of similar circumstance. And in some cases, especially I think for MPs that have children, that can be extremely distressing. But look, folks, I filled out my application form to come back to Westminster. Being an MP or a local councillor or serving your community is a marvellous thing to do. And as I say, I can tell you 1,000 happier stories.
And Helena, you obviously, with your experience of the justice system, you will have heard about cases like this, but the impact on politicians like yourself, just reflect on that with me for a moment.
Well, I did an inquiry in Scotland which was into, misogyny and the experiences of women, both women in public life, but ordinary women too. And I have to say that, I was sort of having a quick exchange with Penny before we started this piece. It really does take a toll on people, and Penny is an incredibly resilient person, and I've known her for a number of years, and count her as one of my sort of favoured politicians. She will tell you that it is a hellishly painful business when you really don't feel safe, and you have to worry about whether you might be being followed into your home, whether you're going to be followed as you go about your daily round. It really takes a terrible toll on people, and they start getting very anxious about their own children and families. So I don't think it's fully understood just how it can be a cost to people who take on roles, particularly those in public life, and particularly to women, it has to be said.
And Penny, do you feel that you can now put this behind you? You say that you've filled in your application form to go back to Westminster. I assume as a Conservative and not as a Reform member?
Well, no, you'll be very reassured. I mean, look, part of this guy's defense was that I didn't miss a beat at work and therefore couldn't have been that distressed about what he was doing. No, of course not. And as I say, your local representatives will probably be dealing with some similar type of issue and just getting on with it. And actually, a lot of people in a lot of walks of life, journalists as well, do this. So but what this also shows that is if you stand up for yourself, whether it is a personal thing, someone doing something particularly to you and you report them to the police, as I did, or we come together and say to social media companies, look, we appreciate your platform, but this isn't on, and this is the effect it has on people. You can change things. So I'm remaining very buoyant and optimistic about public service, and I'm intending to do that with a blue rosette on.
All right. Okay. Well, look, I'm going to talk about reform in just a moment, but we've been hearing, haven't we, this afternoon, Helena, the Chief Constable of West Midlands Police, Craig Guilford, has retired now from his position. We know that Shabana Mahmood said that she had lost confidence in him. Number 10 had lost confidence in him. And basically, she now says, Shabana Mahmood, that he's done the right thing. What do you make of it? Because people will be unhappy that maybe he hasn't been punished enough for any perceived wrongdoing and that he's now being allowed to retire with a pension.
Well, listen, the man has spent many decades policing, and he deserves his pension and so on. You can't. He got this. He didn't handle this particularly well, and he imagined that he was serving the wider community, and I suspect. Took general accounts from officers and people below him in the force and made assumptions that I think were wrong. I mean, I think that we were hearing things described as intelligence, which fell far short from being intelligence. And so I'm glad that he has decided to step down, and I'm glad. But I wouldn't want to see him deprived of his pension. I don't think it's as grievous as that. But what it spoke about was about the importance of understanding our current. The current political situation. The Jewish community feel under threat, but so do Muslims have strong feelings about the things that they care about, and as do many people who are feeling strongly about events in the Middle East. And so there was anxiety about divisiveness in our communities.
Well, Helena, just have a listen to what the independent MP for Birmingham Perry Barr, Ayub Khan, has said. He's offered his perspective on this.
This was certainly not sufficient to seek his resignation. And it's a dark and a shameful day for Birmingham and here in the West Midlands. We have lost a principled police officer who did not bow into political pressure, who did not cave into any community group, and he acted without fear or favour. And he has been maligned, and the narrative that's been spun right from the very top.
What do you make of that?
Well, the thing that I feel about it is that, there are incredible sensitivities. I do think that Labour feels particularly sensitive on this issue because of the previous scandals there were around anti-Semitism. And so there is a particular anxiety by a Muslim Home Secretary to make sure that the Jewish community feel listened to and that their concerns are expressed. I actually don't like banning things. And so by and large, I think that you should be doing things to avoid banning. But I do think there's something important in all of this, which is the extraordinary business of relying on AI, artificial intelligence, to find out stuff about whether there were other matches where there might have been things that happened. And what the public have to realise is that there was something that's called an hallucination, which is that algorithms can start creating creatively inventing things that hadn't happened. We're at the moment, I'm on the Joint Committee of Human Rights, and we're receiving evidence about artificial intelligence and the impact it can have on the lives of citizens of this country. And I have to tell you that there are serious risks like this, and I just wonder to what extent the police are being inducted into the ways in which they should be avoiding being drawn into the great sort of dark chasm that aspects of AI present for us.
Interesting.
The idea of using it for intelligence gathering seems to me the most scandalous part of all of this. And I don't think enough attention is being paid to that bit.
Okay. And Penny, your thoughts on this? I mean, you were mentioning earlier that your relief that the platform X is going to impose restrictions on its AI chatbot Grok, but the use of AI to make an argument against fans arriving for a football match, what do you make of this whole story?
Well, look, I mean, Helena rightly raised issues and differences of opinion within a local community. What all of those people will want is fair and excellent policing, and they will want to be able to trust the processes that are making operational decisions. And this was a disaster from start to finish. The use of AI, but also other evidence being suppressed. I mean, right from the start, from when that community panel were deliberating, the evidence from people like Lord John Mann and others who had gone and interviewed those football clubs and those police forces overseas, it was all there, and it was completely ignored and turned on its head to conclude something else. But if that wasn't enough, you then had what I think was really, at best, disingenuous behaviour in front of a select committee of the House of Commons. And when I was watching that select committee, and the chief constable said, when he was challenged, why didn't you tell us this fact earlier, said, well, you didn't ask me. And I was thinking, can you imagine if he were interviewing a potential, a suspect in a crime, and all you're getting back is that kind of attitude, how he would feel. So I think there's the right outcome is this individual has gone. I hope things can be rebuilt and people move on, but we've got to have trust and confidence in the police, and I think they've got a lot of work to do to build that back for.
Okay. And Mr. Guildford he admitted that AI had been used, and he apologised for providing incorrect evidence. Kevin says, Penny Mordaunt said she'll return with a blue rosette on. Would that be a light blue or a dark blue rosette? Well, we know that you want to be a Conservative, but look what's happened with Robert Jenrick. He announced he'd be defecting to Reform UK after being unceremoniously sacked from the Conservative Party. Do you really want to go back to Westminster?
I do, and I'd like to go back and be supporting a Conservative government, if at all possible. Look, I think the sad thing about this episode this week is that briefly before it happened, Westminster was focused on the country. Kemi had just made an announcement about having children not on adult social media platforms, and it was getting traction and everyone was interested in it. And now we're back gazing at our navels again. So I just think this is, it just shows kind of politics at its worse. We should get back on focusing on the issues facing the country. I was interested to see that the bookies think that Robert has a better chance of being leader of Reform than he did as leader of the Conservative Party. So on that basis, he's probably had a good week.
Well, at the moment, he says he is merely 270,000th or so member of Reform.
A mere foot soldier.
A mere foot soldier.
I sense trouble ahead.
Well, James, Jacob Rees-Mogg was telling us earlier that Mr. Jenrick doesn't lack ambition, so I'm sure he'll be trying to move up the ranks. But Helena, does it bring a bit of relief? Because for once the focus wasn't on Labour and the problems over U-turns and questions about Keir Starmer's leadership.
Well, listen, I'm sure that I'm sure that there were some sighs in Downing Street, that there were some focus in a different direction. But I also am thrilled that Penny is making it clear that she's going back to the Conservative Party and not into Reform. This new party is going to be of the very far right, and I really do think that it's so important. It's important that there is a strong opposition in whoever's in government, and that it functions well. And I do think that it would be good to see people like Penny back, as a parliamentarian, because I want to see sensible conservatism. I don't want to see a lurch to the far right, and I think that that's what this is looking like. And I hope that sensible people in the Conservative Party do not, take this wild invitation on a journey into extremism, because I see it as extremism. And I think that some of the suggestions that are being made are inimical to the kind of general ways in which Britain prefers to be, and it's usually in this sort of central domain of right or left, and it usually transfers back and forth at different times. But to go off into the far reaches of the far right is not a journey I want to see this country taking.
And Penny, do you think this defection has widened the chasm between the Conservatives and Reform, or do you think it will eventually make a deal more likely?
No, I think that the longer time goes on, you're seeing much more of a distance between the two parties. Clearly there will be people that might move between them as ordinary members, but what I see is as a Conservative Party that is grappling with the issues of the day, doing the hard work, but coming up with what will be a hope-filled platform of how to do transformational politics. Our country isn't broken. Our politics is, and that's the problem. We're an incredible nation. And on the other hand, you have a party that rather than dispel fear, fuels it. It relies on that. It wants the country to be written off. It goes overseas and gives evidence to foreign governments about how crap we are as a nation. That's their playbook, and that is not a party I want to have anything to do with.
All right.
You've got a lot to do to get that platform and to be worthy of people's attention and their votes. And that is what Kemi is doing.
Can I just ask you, Helena, I mentioned that there have been troubles, and you've admitted that there probably was a bit of sigh of relief that the attention wasn't on Keir Starmer for once. But we've had a number of U-turns, and one of the U-turns that some Labour backbenchers would like to see is over abandoning jury trials for cases where the sentence would be 3 years or less. Where do you stand on that, and do you think that abandoning that proposal would be a good idea?
Listen, what we know from, I am totally in favour of jury trial. I think that is one of the fundamentals of our justice system, which is one of the strengths of it, is that the outside world, the public take part in it, in this institution, which is so important in a democracy, and is one of our great strengths. And I actually think, how often do citizens get a chance of participating in our institutions, apart from voting once every 5 years? This is their chance to actually do something. And a taxi driver was saying to me the other day, it's one of the times in my life where I felt that I was doing something really valuable, and I was being called upon to, with other people, deliberate on something important affecting the life of another citizen. So this is important. This is about participation and active citizenship. So I think it's a madness on the part of the Labour Party, and I just wish, and it says about all these U-turns, I'd like a little bit of asking and discussing with people before they, declare policy rather than going down these rabbit holes without having done the hard work beforehand. I mean, I heard people saying, isn't it wonderful that, you know, we're changing things on public houses because we've spoken to the publicans and to different people, and now we're reconsidering things, and we're a thoughtful party. Well, do a bit of thinking beforehand is my bit of advice to them. Do the thinking beforehand, not after you've announced the policy. So I really would like us to retreat on this jury business, and I will be, I'm afraid, giving Labour a pretty hard time on it.
I can imagine that, Helena, and I can hear your determination. David Lammy, watch out. Look, just a quickie for you, Penny. It's called Dad's Army. The government's raised the maximum age for military reservists by 10 years to 65 years old. I know you've been a reservist. Are you still a reservist?
So actually, I left the fleet on New Year's Day this year
Oh.
after 16 years. So on this policy, I'll have missed the draft, but I can volunteer and may well do. Although I have to say, if people are relying on me, things have got pretty desperate with our armed forces. Look, I think it is sensible to make use of the skills we have in society. Where we could really do with some focus now is not just on defence, but also on our own civil resilience. On the day the government announced its resilience strategy, it stood down the 750,000 COVID volunteers that stood up to serve their communities. When we ask people to do these things, they step up, they're happy to help, and they could do a lot. And actually, some of the things we might be facing in short order could really hurt us on the civilian side. Our water supplies being poisoned, the NHS having a cyber attack. Our citizens need to know what to do if those things happen. So let's have a bit of that as well.